Alright, well, welcome to Bellamy Cave. This property, well, I'll give you a little bit of background. So we started today in Nashville. We were in the Central Basin, Ordovician-aged limestone karst. We drove up. If you're in Tennessee, you're driving up the Highland Rim. If you're in Kentucky, or if you're from Kentucky, you're driving up the Pennyroyal Plateau. They even call the limestone something different. Tennessee, I believe it's the Swanee Formation, and Kentucky, I think they call it the St. Genevieve. Is that right? But either way, it's pretty heavy karst anywhere you go around here. Like I heard some mention that the creeks tend to be a little dry, which we have been in a bit of a drought, but either way, the water tends to be underground here. So this property is about 70 acres. It's not very big, but our reason for purchasing the property was the cave. It's Bellamy Cave. It's summer and winter habitat for gray bats, which is a little bit unusual. This summer was really unusual. We had extreme flooding events in Tennessee in early May. Bats are normally heading to their maternity sites. We had a lot of maternity sites that were flooded out this year. A lot of those bats seem to either end up here or just stayed here at Bellamy Cave. We had a little over 160,000 during our maternity count. It's fairly accurate thermal video. It's a lot better than the old days when we were using clickers and night vision. I think in the winter time, we count gray bats every 3 years, and it's not as easy as it seems to walk in a cave and count more than 100,000 or so bats. This cave in particular, I don't know why, but the bats disturb very easily, and you have to try to count a lot of bats in a really short amount of time. And I think our count last year ended up, John, off the top of your head, is around 140, 150,000.
Somewhere around there. It was about the same as previous year.
Okay. But I can't say that's a high level of accuracy. Honestly, we were here 5 minutes and the bats were flying all over the place.
And they're in a lot of different roost
And they're in several different locations, and it takes time to get. It's technically challenging to get from one spot to another.
How large is the cave?
What's that?
How large is
We have had it surveyed. The Nature Conservancy has some success with working with cavers, and we have a small group of very dedicated cavers that they like to survey and map our caves. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's multiple miles, but probably less than 5 miles long. It has a stream that's in it pretty consistently. I don't think I've ever seen it dry. Has a lot of invertebrates. There's a candidate species, the Coleman Cave beetle is here. We have a couple other prominent caves in the area, Cooper Creek Cave and Coleman Cave just over the hill. Coleman Cave used to be a gray bat maternity site. Landowners several years ago filled in a sinkhole above the cave and dramatically changed the temperature and humidity in the cave. And since that time, the bats have pretty well gone. There was one year, I believe it was 2007, the sinkhole started to wash in. And I've got photographs from inside the sinkhole, kind of trash and mud starting to come down, but the landowner refilled the sinkhole. He was worried about losing cows in the sinkhole. And we've offered to fence it off multiple times, but he just likes it the way it is, I guess. That one year in 2007, we did have bats using the cave, and it was pretty significant. Several thousand. I can't remember. We did a manual count before we were doing thermal, and it was over over 10,000 bats. So both of these caves, and I'm not sure about Cooper Creek if it has any historical significance. I know it looks like it was mined for saltpeter a little bit, but I know Bellamy and Coleman Cave both have a lot of archaeological significance. There are petroglyphs, buried human remains, things of that nature in both caves. And I guess a lot of the caves near, Dunbar Cave, if anybody wants to speak about that, pretty significant findings in there in the past few years. So it's the caves in this area draw a lot of people, biologists, archaeologists, cave historians for saltpeter use, things of that nature. But I thought we'd go down, maybe look at the gate. This is a bit of a non-traditional gate. You guys are familiar with what cave gates typically look like. They're made of angle iron. The designs generally come from the ACCA, American Cave Conservation Association. They've been sort of perfecting cave gate designs for 60 years, I guess, and we use their standardization. We did consult with them on this gate. This is a very small entrance for a lot of bats, and they're gray bats. Gray bats, maternity colonies don't tend to fly through traditional cave gates real well. If you've ever seen sort of the flyover style gates or the chute gates, they're less secure. But if you don't use something with a larger open area for the bats to fly through, your max capacity is about 15 to 20,000 gray bats, because they come out sort of all within maybe an hour's time tops, for up to a couple 100,000 bats. So what we did here was we erected a fence. We had just a traditional chain link fence when we bought the property, and it wasn't keeping anybody out. So we erected a 10-foot tall steel fence, but we tried to maintain the cold air trap for the hibernation colony in the cave. So we used that sort of low, the angle iron that we use in traditional gates has been tested in wind tunnels, and it's designed to allow air movement in and out. And we put that on the upper side of the cave fence to allow air to move down, the cold air to move down into the cave. So I thought we'd go down, take a look at that, and we can talk. It's noisy in the cave because there's a stream running right around the entrance. I just didn't want to be using my outdoor voice down there, just in case, because they are fairly close to the entrance, some of the bats. But I thought we'd go down there and look. There's a second entrance to the cave, which we don't own, and we've had some negotiation with that landowner to buy that. I think it's probably going to happen. Honestly, I don't think anybody's going in there because it's a nasty crawl, and it drops into a really deep pit that you'd have to rappel down into and then climb up out of to actually get into any part of the cave. But we'd like to buy it anyway, just to have it secure. So I thought we'd go down, look at the fence. We can talk about it a little bit, take a look at that sinkhole entrance to the cave. And then there's another collapsed sink just beyond that. If you guys wanted to look at that, it's just sort of a traditional sinkhole plain, karsty kind of thing that you end up managing for if you're managing land on a karst topography like this. You guys have any questions?
Is that other entrance that used by bats?
It's not. It's not. We filmed it maybe once. We've had night vision down there multiple nights. Never seen anybody really coming out. You may have a pip here or there, but no gray bats. Anything else? Let's have a little walk. And when we get back, I guess we'll. Both summer and winter, and especially during the winter time, there are very few caves. I mean, there are millions of gray bats, but they reside in eight to nine caves in the winter time. Summertime, they're a little bit spread out. They tend to have bachelor colonies and maternity colonies, with the pregnant females going to one site and males and juvenile females or non-pregnant females going somewhere else. This cave has everything. It's a very significant hibernation site, significant, very large maternity site. I mean, a typical year, last year was atypical with 160,000. A normal year is around 80,000. And that's a lot of gray bats, and they're males and females. So again, this cave has the proper microclimate for maternity, bachelor, and hibernation colonies, which is pretty unusual for gray bats. I think there's a lot of future research that's going to be done here. I know BCI is working on a beam break system that's going to go in here, I think, next summer, and be ready for the fall and winter